right, welcome to Counseling Talk. Juan here. Thank you for being here. I've got Ken Pataky, who is an amazing counselor. He specializes in holistic wellness, holistic counseling. And Ken, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Juan. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. For all of you out here, Ken and I go back into the day. But he is here today to share with us, I guess, your approach, right? Your style of helping, supporting individuals move forward. And that has to do with that mixture of holistic wellness, holistic counseling, to support individuals with depression, with anxiety, with trauma.
Yes, I would say that's pretty much the main focus of the practice, or some of the major niches, I guess you could say, that I do. Yeah, I kind of have a unique point of view where I started off I started off learning holistic wellness and holistic remedies and things before I actually went through the counseling program. So I kind of came into counseling the other way. Some folks do their counseling training first and then they learn holistic later, but I had already done that. I was already a yoga teacher and a Tai Chi teacher, and I was a vegetarian and meditator and all this other before Reiki, before I learned counseling. So then I had to figure out how to move that stuff into a more clinical, scientific model type situation.
Yeah, I mean that is so awesome, and I want to dive into that really bad. But first, tell us a little bit about where your practice is at, just so that as listeners are hearing, they're able to say, you know what, I like this guy. He's got some good stuff, some good support, and I may be reaching out.
Yeah, well, I had this dream of creating a laid-back counseling practice that actually I could do out of my own home. I have raised two adult sons who were both college graduates and on their own, and they've moved out, and so I'm what you call an empty nester.
All right.
I have a wife, a wonderful wife who's a registered nurse. She works in cardiology, and she's gone a good amount of the time because she's working nights as well. So I'm here sometimes alone, sometimes not. But I have two different spaces in the home. This is the main space here where it's kind of my waiting area, and I also do therapy. And then there's another room upstairs that's more private in case she's home. My home sits right on the edge of a beautiful natural nature preserve and high point called the Piedmont Environmental Center.
Yeah.
And well, it's technically Jamestown, but it's right on the edge of High Point, and I can actually walk to the trail from my home. And I've done several therapy visits with my clients walking on the trail, actually, from the home, trying to motivate them to exercise and get them out in nature, which is what a lot of them need. So it's been a great thing to be able to bring it home and kind of structure the space, and the time and everything around my life, but also making it convenient for clients. I work in the late afternoons and evenings, which is when many clients are available after work, and that works out well for me too. And yeah, I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. Listening to you, it sounds that you're able to say, this is how I want to live my life. And here's the variables that I have, the puzzle pieces that I have, and I'm going to align them so I can work to have my ideal lifestyle. And I think that's beautiful because, when you're working with someone, like if I'm your client, I'm going to be like, yes, he's living his ideal lifestyle. So to an extent, that means he knows how to get there. And hopefully we're going to be able to hold hands, and you're going to be able to guide me to get to where I want to get to. One of the first questions that I have is, using that background that you have, holistic wellness, holistic counseling. Let's say someone came to you and they're struggling with a mood disorder, right? Somewhere around that depression, anxiety, trauma. What type of support would you provide?
Sure. Well, the first thing I do with all my clients is I do an online wellness assessment and an online mental health assessment that I have in front of me before they even walk in the door. That gives me a picture of what's going on in their life from the point of potential clinical areas, as you just addressed, like, depression or anxiety or trauma. And then there's also wellness factors that I assess, such as what their sleep is like and what they're eating, what kind of exercise they might be doing, what their relationships are like, with their, personal relationships as well as their work life. And I have kind of that holistic picture. So then when they come in, it gives me more of a complete view of who they are. Of course, I meet them in person and we do a lengthy assessment. All of my sessions are an hour and a half, by the way, rather than the typical hour that most clinicians
Oh,
spend. So
wow.
I
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper, yeah, with my clients.
And those assessments, just as
So
a side note, quiz, right?
yeah, it's just,
Like a
it's
simple
something they
one.
can do 15, 20-minute online. It's on my website. They go and do it, and then it gets emailed to me securely. So that's what I have there. And then I have a few more questions that I ask, in person, that are a little bit more clinical. And I want to make sure that I do a proper assessment of whatever mental health diagnosis that they are currently presenting with. They may have a history, but I want to look at what's going on right now, because for
Yeah.
me, taking a snapshot holistically of a person in a present moment, might mean 6 months ago, it might not be present now, or it might be. And I don't try to, as a holistic psychotherapist, I try not to focus too much on clinical diagnosis. It
Mhm.
just gives me a pointer as to where we need to go with the therapy. It's not something I talk about a lot. How's your depression going, or how's your trauma going? But it's something I want to know about, and be able to frame the work. One of the first things I do with clients is talk about the basic wellness interventions that they can do to improve their physical, but especially their mental health. I
What are
talk
some of
about the
those?
brain being an organ that lives inside their body. And so
Yeah.
if their body's not healthy, or if their body's not doing well, their brain is probably not doing well. It's probably weak or
Hmm.
tired. So we talk about things that they can do, basic things they can do to improve their holistic wellness, like taking supplements, improving their sleep, improving their exercise, getting out in nature more,
Yeah.
um, these kinds of things. And then, from there, we kind of, build from the bottom up in terms of making sure that we work on stability in their lives, in their jobs, in their relationships, and eventually we get to work on sort of the self-realization stuff. I'm not someone who rushes right into trauma therapy. I
Hmm.
am a certified trauma therapist, a holistic trauma therapist. I use primarily EMDR. We can talk more about that. But I don't push clients into that right away. I've had clients come to me and said they've been traumatized because in their first session, their therapist was asking them detailed information about previous traumas, which actually re-traumatized them.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So you get to know each other and establish trust, and then
Mhm.
start working on some of these holistic interventions that improve the brain health and improve the confidence in terms of managing, anxiety. I teach them relaxation techniques, and sometimes we do some hypnotherapy, and getting people sort of confident using these methods, to improve their overall health and wellness before we go into working on really difficult material. Um, and then that seems to work a lot better.
Yeah, I love that process. So it kind of sounds like, if a new patient's reaching out, and I think most of us are roughly in that same boat where we may say, you know what, I feel anxious, or I feel like I have some unresolved trauma, but I'm not sure. And then you got this quiz that people can find on your website. They take the quiz and they go, okay, the quiz is saying X, Y, or Z. And I like how when you start the process, you start working on foundation. Like, let's get good sleep. Let's make sure we're eating right, an adequate diet. We're engaging in exercise. I think sometimes we want like a quick fix. Like, I'm struggling with anxiety, teach me one of those cool counseling skills that you got. And it's like,
Right.
whoa, let's build a foundation here, because when you have that foundation, it's going to give you strength. And then once we have that strength, then I think that's where you start to take them in that journey of let's heal. You mentioned having a relaxation technique. Is
Hmm.
that something you would use if someone's struggling with anxiety, excessive worry, on edge, restlessness, or they're having just, racing thoughts?
Absolutely. I talked about how I like to take my time getting into trauma therapy, but I really do like to give my clients a few techniques right away so they can, provide some relief. Certainly making changes to their holistic lifestyle behaviors are very important, like getting them on vitamin D if they're not on vitamin D, or starting to improve their sleep. And I also like to give them some techniques like
Share
guiding
one,
them
please.
through a deep breathing meditation, for example, where I have them sitting right here and I'm guiding them through a 15 or 20 minute. So I can teach them, make sure they know how to breathe deeply and that they feel comfortable letting go of their control and being able to just get into their bodies and relax a bit. Some of my clients that have intense anxiety aren't comfortable yet with sitting still and doing a deep breathing. So we might do a little qigong where we stand up and we do some movements and breathing at the same time. So they start to learn how, oh, if I pay attention to the way I'm moving my arms and the way I'm breathing, that kind of takes my mind off of my obsessive worry or anxiety, and I can focus on that, and that makes me feel better. Plus, I'm getting the deep breathing in there. I'm just doing it as part of a movement exercise, so they feel more calm and focused. And then after doing that for a while, then we can sit down and do some stationary breathing or a guided meditation when they feel more comfortable. So another primary anxiety management technique I send my clients home with is tapping, which is sometimes called thought field therapy or the emotional freedom technique, where you tap on points on your hands and on your head and also on your chest area. It's a way that energizes the heart-mind connection, and it's based on Chinese medicine and the points of the energetic points that stimulate energy movement through the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it tends to be a grounding and distracting. And there's also affirmations that are involved, and it tends to help people, especially that have anxiety issues or like anger management, frustration issues. It's like
What
an
does that look
immediate.
like if you're walking through it?
Yeah, so it's a very simple technique. You start out by identifying the thing that's bothering you. It may be a physical symptom like my throat is tight, or I'm having trouble breathing, or I have a headache, or it could be something emotional like I'm really angry right now
Yeah.
at somebody or at myself, or it could even be a persistent negative thought like I think I'm a loser, or I'm not, I'm gonna get fired or something like that. So then you identify that and you start tapping, and then you say the words even though that thing, like even though I have a headache, or even though I think I might get fired, or even though I'm really angry at my significant other right now, I still completely accept myself. I still completely accept myself. And then you start going around the body. You start with the head, and there's certain points on top of the head, inside the eye. I'm moving a little faster than I normally would just because of time. And you move around these points, and you can either do that silently while you focus on the thing that's bothering you, or you can continue to make affirmations like, this anger inside of me, this anger that's bothering me so much, this anger is so overwhelming, I really hate my anger. And then you switch to the other side and you continue around these points. And after a while, you kind of exercise the negativity, and then you start kind of trying to maybe move it around. You're maybe a little bit more open to the positive spin. Like, well, there's a lot of good points about my significant other. I don't hate everything about him or her. Just this one thing. I suppose I could get over it if I worked at it. Maybe I was partly responsible. You can actually therapize yourself a little bit. And there's some guided meditations I point them to online that are done by certain professionals that can walk them through different themes, like maybe anger or critical voice or anxiety or something like that, where they can actually follow these videos at home if they want to do more of a therapy version. But it can be as simple as you just focusing on something quietly that's bothering you and just tapping. You can do it at work. You can just have your hands under the desk. You can do it at home. You can do it driving in a car. It's really effective.
I like that. It's interesting. You brought a point up earlier where like you had this holistic background, and then you went into mental health school where it has more of that clinical model. And, you know, just me over here, I find myself digging into books and just learning about holistic practices. And it seems like it's a wave that's coming in. I enjoy it because so much of it you can actually apply in a session, like the tapping or let's breathe together. So just as a side note, I've been stalking you on your uh, site, your videos to see what you do, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to borrow some of these practices. But I
Go
love
for it. Yeah, this is a natural human wisdom, you know, that I don't think can really be copyrighted. It goes back thousands of years, and it was, you know, evolved and derived, you know, by experts. I guess you could say they weren't licensed clinicians, right? They were probably old men and old women in robes, you know, holding a wand or something. Who knows? But in a
Well, look,
cave.
doctors were barbers, right?
What's that?
Doctors were barbers.
Oh yeah, that's
Back in
true.
the day,
Yeah,
we have to remember that.
yeah. Yeah, I think that that some of this goes even back beyond, you know, doctoring. Certainly, if you look at history, you can see that modern doctoring is a relatively recent thing in terms of this idea of attacking the body with instruments and, you know, slicing and dicing it and filling it full of drugs and trying to fight the illness and destroy the illness, as opposed to seeing the body as something that is incredibly brilliant and self-healing, and that it knows what it needs to do as long as you just provide the right ingredients and the right support. And if you can figure out the pieces, that's what I love about holistic wellness. You know, when I take a look at, and I keep making the circle because there's certain models of holistic wellness that use a pie diagram to look at your different parts of your life as slices of the pie. Some
Hmm.
slices are really big and fat, you know, like you might have a great job that you really like, but, you know, you're single and lonely, or
Yeah.
maybe you're overweight, or maybe you don't exercise at all, or maybe your sleep is horrible because you're up all night watching Netflix. So something's going on that's out of balance in that pie or in that wheel. And if I can help identify those things, you know, a chain is only strong as the weakest link, right? So
Yes.
then we start working on those things, and it seems like you know, people feel better much more quickly when you can look at things like that holistically, and rather than trying to just narrowly focus on one problem. You know, you want to look at a problem. If someone says to me like, well, I have a problem in my relationship, or I have a problem at work, or I have a problem with weight loss, I need to lose weight, I'll say, okay, great, that's a great goal, but
Hmm.
let's look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
Why are you overweight? What are all the factors that play into your weight loss? And we need to address as many of those as we can to make sure that we create a package that's going to move you forward successfully. If we
Hmm.
just focus on eating less food, that might not that might work for the short term, but if you don't change your relationship with food, or some other things in your life that may be causing this need to overeat to fill something that isn't there, it's just going to come back, right?
Yeah,
Until we
absolutely.
address the whole picture. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am
So,
on board with that. I completely agree. I love that example. Before we close, you know, I could talk to you all day. Before we get to this closing point, share with everyone listening how they can contact you, maybe a phone number, website, how they're able to reach out to you for support as they move forward in their life.
oh, sure. Well, I do have my own website. My business is called the Phoenix Way to Holistic Natural Health, and Phoenix symbolizes to me the, the traditional animal of transformation and change. You know, that the phoenix every 500 years would light itself on fire and then rise from its own ashes. And that's sort of the way I approach the work I do with people, that no matter who you are, no matter what situation you're in, you know, you can change it if you want to, with the right support and with the right intention. So my business is called the Phoenix Way. So for short, just Phoenix Way, and that's my website is actually phoenixway.net, PhoenixWay.net. So you can go out there and watch videos of me and look at the different therapies I do. I also offer coaching, holistic life and health coaching for folks that that might not have a presenting mental health problem, but want to address some other aspect of their lives. And you can contact me on my website. You can actually schedule an intake online, or just send me an email. Under my Connect, you'll see a menu item for Connect, and if you click on that, you'll see options to either book an appointment online or contact me through email. And I get a lot of referrals from Psychology Today. So if people are out there browsing on Psychology Today, that's, I have a profile on there. But you're certainly welcome to go directly to my website, where you'll see a lot more information about me and what I do.
Well, awesome. And then I'll definitely post that in the comment section in this video, so you guys, check that out. Give Ken a call. I do think that he can help. He can, be there and provide support. Well, thank you for being here, Ken. Have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you, Juan.